It took me over 2 full days to reach this place, windswept islands on the edge of the Southern Ocean. Welcome to the Falkland Islands. Fewer than 4,000 people live here, but nearly 500,000 sheep do. And penguins. So many penguins. This is one of the most remote food-producing regions on Earth, and it's one of the most ecologically striking, too. In this video, we'll take a look at how they could actually expand that, given something they have so much of: water. With the coastline carved by inlets and islands, it's no surprise that fishing defines life here. In fact, fisheries account for roughly 60% of the Falklands economy. Squid, like those being jigged here, as well as toothfish and other Southern Ocean species, dominate the catch. Much of it harvested in partnership with international fleets. After all, 4,000 islanders might have a tough time eating the roughly 200,000 tons of seafood caught in their waters annually. And let's not forget about those 500,000 sheep. They certainly matter here too. With roughly 130 sheep per person on the islands, livestock production has shaped the islands for generations. I'm not sure anywhere else on Earth has a sheep on their flag. To me, what's so striking is how these systems coexist with extraordinary wildlife. Here, the idea of conservation and production going hand in hand, like we want to see in so many places in the world, aren't really abstract ideas, they're daily realities. And in many ways, the Falklands have already shown that this balance can be achieved, whether it's through their fisheries, their livestock production, even their energy. So, what am I, the aquaculture guy, doing all the way down here? For those of you who haven't seen my content before, which is most of you, I assume, this is one of my first proper full-length YouTube videos, I have been exploring this sector, aquaculture, for over 5 years. And this journey has taken me all over the world. You can see this in hundreds of videos I've made on all my other channels. Anyways, back to the Falklands. Aquaculture is not a new idea here. Over the years, multiple species have been trialed, including salmon, and biologically, many of those trials showed real promise. But they never moved beyond proof of concept, for a number of reasons. But today, things are changing. A joint venture between a Falkland Islands fishing company and a Scandinavian partner are asking a bigger question. Not just could aquaculture happen here, in theory, but should it happen responsibly? Specifically, salmon farming. I've seen over 100 of these farms around the world, and that's what I came here to understand, how this might work in the Falklands. I am not going to decide the outcome. I'm in no position to make that call. I'm only here to understand the process and how Falkland Islanders will eventually make this decision, along with the fishers exploring this.
So I'm the Executive Secretary of the Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber of Commerce represents, at this present moment in time, 138 businesses. The board of the Chamber of Commerce meets regularly with government officers and members of the Legislative Assembly, and we talk about diversification quite frequently. At the moment, there's a heavy reliance on the fishing industry because it does bring in the most GDP for the economy. However, it is very volatile. If you have a bad fishing season, there's less revenue that gets generated for the economy. So we do talk about diversifying into other areas.
It's February here, and it's the height of summer, but despite the turquoise waters and white sandy beaches, this is still a cold summer. Trust me, even I got fooled. This was freezing. If you're ever gonna swim in the Falklands, I highly recommend a wetsuit at least, a dry suit if you can. This is because the Falklands sit just 1,200 kilometers north of Antarctica, buffered only by the southern tip of South America, which actually leads them to surprisingly stable inshore sea temperatures year-round, typically ranging between 5 and 10 degrees Celsius. From a biological standpoint, that is the optimal range for Atlantic salmon, but they're not native here. Notably here, brown trout, which are a similar species to Atlantic salmon, were introduced here about a century ago, and they now have a wild population established. Atlantic salmon do not. But those salmon, Atlantic salmon in this context, are a domesticated species. They're farmed globally, including in nearby Chile. So mitigating the obvious risk of we don't want these salmon getting out in the wild is paramount. And it's something that's been explored for decades, and the fact that Chile is right nearby does help. Similar environments, Atlantic salmon are not native there either. That doesn't mean that the risk disappears though. Escape prevention would be critical. A super interesting approach to this that Unity Marine, the company looking at this project, is exploring is all-female farming systems. With no males even entering the pens in the ocean, There's no possibility of a breeding population establishing in the wild, even if an escape were to occur. Unity Marine are looking at so many routes here on the biology side of salmon farming in the Falklands, so that's just one example of a proposal they have. But biology is only one part of the equation. What I learned on the islands, from islanders of course, is that the biggest concern by far is environmental interaction. How would these salmon farms affect the bays, the waters, the wildlife around them? Let's start with what those farms need, because you can't just put a fish farm anywhere. They require very specific conditions, especially with Atlantic salmon. Some of the best farms I've seen operating around the world do so in strong tidal flows with deep water, typically 25 meters or more. This maintains good flushing, and of course it keeps the oxygen levels high in the water for the fish. Just as importantly is where those farms are placed in respect to other infrastructure, be it fishing grounds, settlements, urban areas, shipping routes, the list goes on. And critically, they must avoid sensitive habitats. Kelp forests, penguin colonies, wildlife hotspots, that's what's most important here in the Falklands. Once a region like this is identified, that's when you start looking at what the seabed is made of. You really want it to be muddy or sandy. This is usually far more suitable for finfish aquaculture. It sounds like a lot of requirements, and it is. You want to do this right, but the Falklands have over 10,000 kilometers of coastline, so the potential definitely exists out there somewhere, but where? We won't know until prospectors look. That will be Unity Marine going out to these sites, performing consultations with the government, bringing on scientists to research these areas. This needs to be an island-wide assessment, and in this case, it's called an Environmental Impact Assessment, or EIA. These examine currents in the ocean, seabeds, habitats, storm exposure, surrounding infrastructure, really everything that could factor into the performance of a salmon farm. It's standard practice for new marine farms around the world. A lot of misinformation you might see online is because, well, 50 years ago, they really weren't looking at a lot of this stuff. Nowadays, sites are managed, they're monitored, and they're regulated. And a process like this doesn't just identify potential sites, it also identifies no-go zones. Until this work is done, and this is a big process, this is a multi-million-dollar process, no conclusions can be drawn either way on whether salmon farming is right for the Falklands and to what scale. And that's exactly how this should be. This process should not be rushed, but it also needs to happen.
Well, the Chamber of Commerce have got a collective view that the process must be followed through from the beginning to the end as agreed by their own processes and procedures. Whether aquaculture is right or wrong for the Falkland Islands, that would come out within the full consultation period. We do believe it is important that the process is followed through from the beginning to the end to a satisfactory conclusion. Whether it's good or bad, that's up to the government to decide after we've seen all the information. The environmental impact assessment is pretty crucial. The Falkland Islands relies on its natural environment, and without understanding what the environmental impacts would be for aquaculture and any mitigations that we can put in place to reduce that risk, so without the environmental impact assessment, then it would be very difficult to make an informed decision about the risks to the environment and the mitigations that you can put in place to try and reduce some of those risks.
I think one of the most important things here is that the Falklands wouldn't be starting from scratch. If they brought salmon farming in, it wouldn't be 1970s, 1980s technology. They wouldn't have to learn their own lessons from those mistakes early on. All of that has been done through the global farming sector, right? They can start in 2026 or whichever year they start in. Atlantic salmon have been farmed commercially for over 50 years. And in that time, those farming strategies have evolved, often because of hard lessons. What we see nowadays is some of the strongest farming regulation in the world is on the water. We're seeing improved feeds, better fallowing, real-time environmental monitoring, offshore systems. I've seen all of this and so much more around the world in some of the most pioneering places. And there's another really interesting angle here. I didn't expect it going in, but I lived in the UK for a year. I got the feel of what it was like to be there, right? And when I went to the Falklands, it was strikingly similar in a lot of ways. And this might come as a surprise, but salmon is the United Kingdom's #1 food export. It is a huge part of the coastal and rural economies of Scotland. And it's also the UK's most popular seafood. So what I see here is the question becomes, could this archipelago, the Falklands, already defined by fisheries and agriculture, responsibly become part of Britain's most valuable food sector? And in doing so, could it attract a whole new world of skilled jobs? marine biologists, engineers, technicians, processors, scientists, veterinarians, so much more? Or, alternatively, is the risk too high? Of course, there is no such thing as farming without impact. You can see this around the Falklands, and you can see this basically everywhere in the world. But it's worth exploring farming techniques where we can minimize that impact, where we can monitor it in real time, and where it's temporary. That's one of the great things about aquaculture. It's one of the reasons I find it so interesting. Salmon farming, for instance, has changed so much in the past few decades that it's really unrecognizable from the mid-2000s. So much so that it has one of the lowest carbon footprints of any animal production in the world, and we're doing this at scale, millions of tons. It's fascinating stuff, but it's not well understood, and a lot of it's new science. So there's a huge debate, not just in the Falklands, but globally. And in order for the Falklands to proceed with this, they need science. They deserve scientific answers, not just slogans. Because if salmon farming can be done responsibly here, it would be one of the most fascinating new chapters in global aquaculture. And if it can't, that matters too. Without rigorous, transparent scientific consultation, there's no real answer either way. That's why I came here, because that consultation is just about to begin, and it's critical that that work is done with scientific grounding. I'm super excited to see how this evolves here in the coming months and years. Who knows, you might be enjoying some of the world's most remote and delicious salmon in years to come. And I hope this video gave you some new insights into the process, and I encourage you to look at the science behind modern finfish aquaculture. It may surprise you just how innovative this space can be. See you in the next one.